Godrick the Grafted, the lord of all that is golden, the man that is seen as a job of reasonably in the lands between, and is easily the weakest demigod, and has been said as such. But in comparison to sundering people in different verses, he might possibly bring somewhat of a formidable challenge. And here, we're testing that. Against Homelander, a man that a lot of people claim to be weak, and reasonably so, is seen as a weak hero, and in comparison to his verse, right, he is the strongest of it, but you could argue a lot of those people are jobbers too, in comparison to the greater grand scope of all of fiction. But could there be an argument that Homelander is more stronger than people think? As some people I have seen lowball I said that Homelander could be, even within his storytelling and his writing, and even though I have plans to possibly more in-depthly speak about this and the boys' power scaling tier list, wait on that. I do want to go ahead and say that there is a lot more to Homelander than what people would possibly expect. And in today's video, I'm here to go and ask the question: who would win, Godrick or Homelander? Hope you guys will enjoy. Leave a like, share, comment, subscribe if you are new. Please enjoy, and most importantly, I appreciate you for watching. Let's go and get it in. Godrick, the disgraced demigod, who has a legacy longer than any possible legacy in the lands between. He is the great descendant of the legendary Godfrey, the great first elder lord, king of the lands between once, and as well acts the Queen America. As well, the most ferocious and mighty warrior the lands between has ever known, and ex-chieftain of the Badlands with his surname Horlu. He as well is a descendant of Godwin the Golden, greatest demigod, ex-king of Lindell, most graceful demigod, and with that being said, is the child of Queen America and Godfrey, the first child. But even with having relation to two predominant people, as well, Morgoth and Moog, he is disgraced, dishonored, and disliked across the great deal of the lands between. He looks like a fool. He is humiliated by a more profound and proficient demigoddess in the case of Melania, Blade of Mikola, and as well was literally scared to all new hellish regard when he just felt the presence of Radon, king of the battlefield's lion, heading towards him. With that being said, this man Godrick is again not only the weakest demigod, but as well as seen like a jobber, not just within the lands between, but as well reasonably fiction. When it comes down to what he is as a matter of a man and lore, he's the king of Stormvale. He rules with a tyrannical hand, and he rules with an iron fist. He protrudes his people throughout the lands between, not only to stain the case of his stand, but as well makes predominantly in Limgrave rule forever unyieldingly. And he also does this to ponder different ways to do the sickening, grotesque act of grafting. Grafting is a great a sin in the case of the lands between, like no other sin, where you take people's bodies and you go about taking different parts of them to add to your base as a form of a person to pretty much gain advantage, reputation, or form of power for, which is why he takes the head of a dragon and adds it to his chopped off left hand to grace new power, as well why he has multiple limbs. As Godrick did not always look like that. Godrick was said to always look like a mixed bag, deformed, disfigured man, but his size and mixed different depiction of him is just a part of the fact of him being a demigod that was just born entirely kind of like unreally astonishing. He was never really top tier. Even while being a demigod, he has the lightest essence of a demigod. But like any other demigod, he is massive, he is huge for his size, and most importantly, is big and somewhat very much powerful. For being a demigod, regardless of how weak he is, would be stronger than the greater echelon of different demigods among the lands between, possibly, you might think, if you think that in truth he is more powerful than you would expect. But by all reasonableness, he is the weakest, and he would, even while being a demigod, be stronger than most different general tarnish, or in the case you could think of, would not take away the fact that he is still without a doubt the weakest demigod and one of the weakest people for a reason. Now, when it comes down to his stance as the king and mix as well his grafting and AP and blah blah. This grafting, he has multiple limbs, a great axe that allows him to do multiple hammering swings. He's able to bend the wind around him to cause different cyclones of crazy different forms, to whop people with different crazy smacks. He's very powerful to where he's able to cause shockwaves to earthquakes and pretty much batter in the ground to make crowd control. And with grafting, the big dragon head, like I said before, allows him to obviously utilize fire. He's able to go ahead and cause great case of area control there. He's able to charcoal people if he gets a chance, and as well utilize this to cause different windmill turn of events with fire. He's able to jump pretty high, pretty fast, and is powerful. And with my tier list in question, again, he's stronger than a general echelon of people, but no one of actual prolific demigod or anyone of significance. He's easily the weakest demigod without a doubt, and nothing about his legacy or nothing of his grafting makes him that powerful, as he is seen as nothing but a slothful, greedy piece of shit because of that. And this is not just my words, it's also just anyone of significance. Godrick is pretty cheeks. But if I had to go ahead and like constitute his AP from all of this, I would say easily at face value he would be a small building plus character at low end, right, consistently, and would bare minimum maybe get to building level if you stretch his different case of Quam. But because he's over mixed different run around of different tarnished that use different magic, takes of this and this to possibly quantify, and because he is a demigod, and because of the mixed comparison to other demigods that you can mix different, see in the lands between and on the tier list on the screen, you could actually say that he could be, even if he is weak. The fact is he did survive a fight with Melania. We do not know how the fight went, but he did just get humiliated, right? And she probably spared him out of just pity, seeing that he was a waste man and probably did not know of really Godrick's thing of like actual reputation or status, especially because Melania is blind. But it doesn't matter, she can still see obviously because she's just built different. But besides that, like, Godrick would possibly be pushing country level if you think he's at bare minimum able to stand to some of the capabilities of mixed tarnish of different renown. The fact that Nefeli mixed with the tarnish, or just the tarnish, because the tarnish is the man, the myth, the legend. He could stand to that. So that would constitute a man being at least at those levels. And then the highest you could get him is maybe, which is lower, mixed bag, depending on how you perceive, at a more greater consistent regard, right, from that possible stand, but I feel like is reasonably to be a mountain level to maybe greater country worth person. But again, it's very mixed and consistent. Godrick is just weak. He has no real constitution of being anything of real significance, and he is just puny. So I would say my bare minimum calculation would probably say, by everything he's shown in his boss fight and stated, would be a small building at low and consistent to maybe high rank country level individual, which again is not really consistent by anything to really demonstrate. It really just depends on how you feel. And for the record, obviously, if you're new here, I'm not saying Melania or any other demigod just stands at country level. I'm just saying, again, look at the tier. If you think he's over these people and nothing they throw at him would hurt him, then that means any of their capabilities that might demonstrate country level higher than that possible yields, he would defeat. He would defeat dang near almost every bare minimum fodder to low tier tarnish, which have statements and accolades that would go higher than that. So that is why I say what I say. Speed wise though, he would reasonably, because of his wind moves, be easily mix of being low end, most high key, like just face value look would be between the argument of the sub plus, type of speed, aka subsonic to possibly supersonic. But you could get to middle ground most congruent to say massively hypersonic, at least bare minimum stances of speed, to say that he can move faster than any other, with the case of having the capability to blitz around with fire and wind. But speed scaling is very weird to really say where he could scale. And if you stretch again about mixed argument that he just physically is more faster but not entirely in speed, right, you could say that he can be pushing light speed. Or if you're one of the people that think everybody can scale to the tarnish, when mixed bag the lure would demonstrate arguably not, because there's a lot of reasons why a lot of people shouldn't even be able to face the tarnish except for the high tiers, right? He could actually be like highest rank, which entirely new levels of fucking Sonic the Werehog stretch, be between low end infinite and accessible, if you stretch around the actual definition consistently, possibly immeasurable speed, But I think let's try to, lower ourselves down to the most realistic for Godrick, and let's say he's reasonably, I feel like, a supersonic plus to reasonably just hypersonic individual because of the usage of wind and mixed scale over multiple different echelon of people. That, in conclusion, would be the most rightful to say about Godrick. But time to move on to Homelander. Homelander, aka John, strongest superhero of Vought and in the world. This man has multiple statements, multiple showcases of him being powerful, surviving small town level yields to multi-city block level yields with the explosion involving Black Noir. He's also stronger than multiple suits that can create storms. All the type of feats, he's said to be the strongest, right, of the entire verse. So any suit that does this and this would be literally under him, and as well be just fodder. He's way stronger than them. He also has statements about taking, nukes and atomic bombs. His father talking about the kids taking atomic bombs. He also said he could take New York on the face of the map, which would make him, mountain level possibly. But again, I feel like that's the biggest stretch. I feel like the most consistent you could get him is reasonably lowest end, large town level to reasonably city block plus to reasonably multi-city block to about city level. In the highest wing that could be a greater consistency is multi-city if you think you can take multiple nukes upon nukes. That is just from a bare minimum. Again, he's stronger than every soup in the case of the world, and possibly to even be shown greater on, as he is top dog, said to be the strongest, greatest weapon of Vought, top dog, leader of the seven, greatest of all. His powers literally being, a parody of Superman. He has heat vision, flight, super strength, endurance. He has, extra vision, super hearing, advanced smell. Never shown, but mixed accounting, from the comics, has, super screech yell, but could be a stretch. Wind breath could also be a thing. Ice breath never shown to be a thing. Homelander has no showcases of those powers. He has a weakness within his ear canal, right? But, they're saying that this man Godrick can never explode, most likely. And as well, this man, Homelander, is decently very much intelligent. He's not a good hand-to-hand combatant, but has rocked with people who are decently that, showcasing they can adapt and he can out-muscle people to a great regard. What is being said, he is faster than any jet in the world, making him easily multiple times hypersonic to easily massively hypersonic at different speeds of jets that can break the sound barrier, do something of greater form and a mixed stretch take, right? But as well, because of scaling to other people that had different mixed claim of this, or scaling above people in different argument for speed and powers, he reasonably would be able to scale over them. And then there's characters that have mixed a claim of using light or this and this and that, where you could say that he could easily be within the relativistic, from lowest end sub-relativistic to maybe mid, and the highest stretches you thinking that Homelander is great at light speed. I think reasonably relativistic is a consistent thing, but the lower thing would just be like massively hypersonic, something from aerial combat, possibility of again being faster than jets and scaling over people multiple times over. And we have seen A-Train mix scale to Starlight, even if you want to talk about how Starlight generates her light is more electricity and just more like bombastic, just rays are considered to be light in different description. There's also him having, laser eyes to heat vision, so that should be light. He scales to the laser eye lights of this man Billy Butcher, and yeah, like just simply put, he should just be a built different regard dude. If it's an obvious, simply put, Homelander slaps. It doesn't matter if it's low end interpretation of him, he would slap. The only way you can see Godrick winning is you play a bunch of different wank, inconsistent, incongruent with an actual, consistency. Homelander has the better scaling. He has the better feats, better argument, better accolades, and he just has everything that actually would suffice to get him the dub. This is an obvious thing, positive for a lot of people watching this, but it is something interesting because there has been, different debates that this man Homelander in any community post and any conversation could have a fight that he actually would win, and Godrick is one of those. Godrick the Grafted, aka Forefathers, one and all, bear witness, face said. Yeah, but it is what it is. Simple as that. Homelander slaps, one-shots, bullies the hell out of Godrick, and Godrick would probably plead the mercy against Homelander, and he would probably, scold him and saying I can do whatever the fuck I want while ripping his ass in half. As simple as that. Homelander is a winner. Let me know what you guys think though. Leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, whatever the case may be. Right, sorry, I was my throat. Pause. But yeah, I'm gonna love you all. See you guys in the next one. Peace out, mommy. Love y'all.